Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Coffee with Katie. I have my Valaris City of Starlight mug. Today's video is going to be a book review on Beneath These Cursed Stars by Lexi Ryan. So this is a spin-off of These Hollow Vows by Lexi Ryan, that duology where it was like These Hollow Vows and then These Twisted Bonds. So she had this spin-off come out in July, the end of July, called Beneath These Cursed Stars, which is actually really interesting because it's years after the events of These Hollow Vows, and it's following the little sister, but she's now like 17, 18. I can't remember exactly how old she is, but she's somewhere around there, 18, 19. And her trauma from being a prisoner from Mortius, the like evil king in the first duology. So I was really intrigued because I was really curious to follow the sister because we don't really get a lot of her story in the duology because she's, I guess kind of a bit of a spoiler, but in the beginning of the duology, you find out she's been like captured or she's just being held captive by Fae because reasons. Anyway, so I got this on NetGalley in exchange for my review. I ended up finishing it afterwards, after it came out, and wasn't able to get it ahead of time, but I do have a review. This is kind of a surprise. It wasn't on any of my TBRs or anything. I was just slowly plucking away at it as I could. Like I said, you're following Jazz, and the start of this book is that I think she was like 7, 10, really young in the first duology, and now you're picking up where she's like in her late teens, early 20s. I think she's like 17, 18, 19. Cannot remember for the life of me the exact age at the moment. So she's 18, for example, and she had a lot of trauma because you find out in the first duology, a little bit of a spoiler, she's said to be like safe when she was captured, but that was actually a lie, and that she was tortured, and no one really knows the extent of that except for her and by Mortius. And she has a lot of trauma that she's held in, and the start of the book, you're following her because she bartered something for this magic ring, and when she puts the ring on, she becomes this lady, and so her appearance becomes very fair, very different than what she looks like, and she's able to seduce people, but not even just that. It's like everyone admires her and immediately will do anything that she asks them to do. So they're kind of like enthralled by her. And it can be men, women, anyone. Anyone that physically looks at her will become enthralled. And then she uses that to her advantage to track down all of the evil King Mortius's allies. So she'll find them, she'll get them alone, get them entranced, and then she'll kiss them because her kiss while she's wearing this ring is poison and it will kill them instantly. So it's kind of an interesting synopsis and premise going into the book because that's the premise of the book, but also that's kind of like where you're starting. You're not starting with her getting the ring and blah, blah, blah. Like she already has it. She's already been doing this, and she kind of sneaks out of the palace at night and is doing this like vigilante stuff. Her sister doesn't know, and her sister thinks she's very damaged, which she is, but she thinks that she's kind of sad, depressed, not able to function, while she's kind of letting them believe that, and then she's sneaking out at night and doing this and like taking revenge on people and killing people. So the premise in the beginning are kind of interesting, and then she ends up kind of getting into a plot with somebody, with a human that she knew while she was imprisoned. He was also imprisoned. She ends up kind of getting involved in a plot with them to take down this other syndicate that is evil, and there's also like some more followers of Mortius that are still wanting to take down the queen, her sister, and so she wants to put all of this to a stop. And so she kind of realizes that it's advantageous for both of them if they team up, and they want her to team up with them because she's a part of this prophecy that they heard, and so they need her in this like ragtag crew of people. So she teams up with them, and she's sneaking out without her sister knowing. And so there's also this like shifter. They're called it's not a shade, a shadow. There's a very specific name for it because they're not just a shifter, but there's this specific person that is in their crew that can take your hair and then take on your identity, but also your memories, like slowly in dreams and stuff. It's actually pretty interesting. And she is pretending to be Jazz in this situation that her sister thinks she's in. So her cover is with this other person, and they have their own storyline, and then Jas is off with this human crew trying to kind of take down the Fae. It's not really taking down the Fae, it's more just like targeting a specific group, and then these people of rebels that are tied to Mortius and are still following him. And there's been like whispers of him returning, and they don't know if that's true or not. So that's kind of the premise you're looking at, maybe a little bit more than the premise, but it sounded interesting and I was curious about it. I did like the magic system at the beginning where she's like has this weird magical ring and she's doing her vigilante stuff. However, I felt like this book was just okay. I think it was a little hard to get into. I think the very beginning you're like hooked and you're like, this is interesting, and you want to know what's going on. And then I felt like it just kind of dragged on for a while. And then of course there's kind of like a cliffhanger-y ending. So beginning was interesting, and towards the end it ramps up for the cliffhanger. But in between, it was just kind of okay. And I think I figured out the plot pretty early on, or like the twist, or like the surprise. I think I figured that out pretty early on. There's another one that I didn't know, but it didn't exactly shock me either. I just feel like overall, I wasn't as invested as I was in the first duology. I feel like the first one had me in my feels, and this one was just kind of like there. And I enjoyed it. I will continue the series because apparently it's a series. Also didn't know that. I'll continue it, but I don't have as much attachment to it as I did to the first duology. I found myself kind of slogging through the middle of the book a little bit, not really caring a whole lot about the characters, about the plot, which is sad because I do really like this world. It's a much different story than the first duology. It's just, you just can't compare it. It's very different. It's not the same type of plot, it's not the same type of situation, but it did use some of the same plot devices, and I thought that was kind of silly. Because if you're gonna write this whole new story following a new character and a new sister, and you're gonna use a couple of the same plot devices, that feels weird to me, and I didn't like that. One of the things that's also interesting, and it's like, it talks about it in the beginning of the book, and it's kind of weird how it's explained, but it continues on. And this is a little bit of a spoiler. Not really, it's just like something that happens in the book. Is that she has these scars from when she was tortured in the dungeons of Mortius's lair, but they don't appear. So she like was tortured as a kid, but the scars never showed up because she was healed, because he needed to keep her alive. For whatever reason, he decided, probably as leverage. And the scars are showing up now, like real time. She'll have another one show up and another one show up. And that was kind of strange. It was interesting, but like, it's kind of, I thought it was weird that the main character brushed it off, because she was like, oh yeah, like I know where that's from. But you don't have any inkling of that being a problem or an issue or a red flag, anything, just anything about them showing up now when they didn't before. There was a couple of things like that I felt like there were some plot holes or some weird things that were just accepted or ignored and not delved into. And at one point I think there's a aha moment of the character, but I'm just like, what did you think was going on? Or like, why weren't you questioning it? So there's a little bit of that was kind of weird. You do get a little bit more of the goblins, which I actually did like, just because she has one, and the other character that's pretending to be her has one. You also get more of Misha in this book. He's like a pretty big part of half of the storyline, which is really cool. I really enjoyed that. And you get his perspective in the last chapter of the book, which is also really cool. So there are things that I did like about this, but again, nothing had me as invested, as gripped as the other duology. So like I said, I'm still going to continue the story because apparently it's a series, but that really, really threw me off because I was under the impression that the sequel spin-off story was a one-off. I did not think it was going to be a series at all. I felt like that wasn't advertised at all, which is kind of understandable. That's kind of how publishing goes sometimes. But I had no expectation for another book. So I thought the story was going to wrap up. And when you're like getting towards the end, you're like, how? Obviously, they're not doing it in this book. I think it's going to be another duology. But unless that one like blows me away, this one is just okay. It's not that great. I think it could have been better as a standalone if they had cut out some of the like meandering. But like I said, I really enjoyed getting more of Misha and Jess. Like, it was fun to get Jess's perspective, even though she was kind of frustrating at times. I'm curious to see where they're going to take it from here with some of the plot that has unfolded. I think I like the other storyline more than Jazz's, which is sad to say. But we'll see. I'm curious to know if you guys have read this yet, or if you've read these Hollow Vows and what you thought of it. But that's kind of my rambling thoughts. That's a tiny bit spoilery, but trying not to spoil the whole book for you. Review on Beneath These Cursed Stars. If you have read this, I would love to chat with you in the comments below. Just tag spoiler if you're going to spoil anything. But other than that, that is it for today's video. So please like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I will see you next time. Stay safe and caffeinated. Bye.